In the quiet corners of the internet, something began to take shape. It was not born in the old world, not passed down through generations or carved into stone. It came from pixels and whispers. It came from fear. Slender Man did not start as a creature of legend, but he became one. And perhaps that is what makes him more dangerous, because he wasn't found. He was made. And once he was, he refused to stay fictional. The first time he appeared was on an internet forum in 2009. A challenge had been posted: take a normal photo and make it eerie. One user added a tall, faceless man in the background of old playground pictures, just barely visible. Children played in the foreground. Slender Man watched from behind. The image had no movement, no sound, no scream. And yet, it was horrifying. Something about the blank face, the unnatural height, the way he didn't belong, and yet seemed like he had always been there. But it didn't stop with the image. People began to write stories, not long, crafted tales, but short bursts of horror. My friend saw him, and now she won't talk. He was outside my house last night. I dream about him. These weren't written like fiction. They were written like journal entries, like warnings, like truth. In those early days, Slender Man was everywhere and nowhere. He had no single story, no known origin, but he always shared certain traits: tall, faceless, dressed in black, silent. He lived in the forest. He followed children. He moved without sound, and he never needed to run, because he always caught up. The myths began to grow. People said he had tentacles, not always visible, but there when he wanted them to be. They said he could stretch his arms, wrap them around trees, reach through windows, that he could make electronics go haywire, that photos would blur when he was near. And worst of all, that once you saw him, you couldn't stop seeing him. His image stayed in your mind, like a stain on your thoughts. He followed those who believed in him, and he never left. The children were always at the center. In drawings, they showed up with Slender Man standing behind them. Often the kids had no faces either, just blank white circles where smiles should have been. Some stories said Slender Man took children, not violently, not in a rush. He just made them follow, into the woods, into the dark, away from home. And they never came back. No one ever heard a scream. No blood was found. Just an open door, a trail in the leaves, and silence. But the scariest thing wasn't what happened in the stories. It was what began to happen in real life. Children all over the world drew him, talked about him, feared him. Some became obsessed. One case, the most disturbing of all, took place in Wisconsin. Two 12-year-old girls lured their friend into the woods and stabbed her repeatedly. They claimed they had to do it for Slender Man, to please him, to prove he was real. The girls survived. The case made headlines around the globe. And for the first time, people wondered, had a modern myth crossed over into the real world? Psychologists said Slender Man was a product of the digital age, an urban legend for a generation raised on screens, a creature born from shared fear and the power of the internet. But others weren't so sure, because as the years went on, the stories didn't stop. In fact, they got stronger, more detailed, more real. Some said Slender Man could influence people through dreams, that he could use guilt and shame to break someone down, that he whispered, not with words, but with thoughts, and that once you let him in, it was already too late. People claimed to see him in real life, at the edge of the woods, standing by the road at night, disappearing when headlights passed. He never moved fast. He didn't need to. He had patience. He had time, and you would eventually come to him. He was not a predator in the traditional sense. He was the shadow in your memory, the shape you almost saw, a presence you could never quite explain. Over time, people started avoiding certain places, not because they saw him, but because they felt like they might. That quiet hesitation, that shift in the stomach, that chill before turning a corner, that was his signature. What makes Slender Man terrifying isn't gore or violence. It's his silence, his stillness, his ability to make the world around him feel wrong without ever lifting a finger. It's the feeling that he is always watching, even when your eyes are closed. It's the idea that belief gives him power. That with every new story, every whispered name, every search, every frightened glance into the trees, he grows stronger. He isn't just in the forest anymore. He's in the internet, in the collective mind, in the deep web, in Reddit threads, in your recommended videos, in the dark parts of your thoughts. You don't summon him with a ritual, you summon him by knowing him. That's all it takes. Some people believe he was created by accident, a ghost born from digital folklore, but others aren't so sure. They think something older was hiding behind the mask from the beginning, something ancient, something patient. The internet just gave it a face, a form, a way to spread. They say myths don't die, they evolve. And this one found a new way to live. Through code, through fear, through us. It didn't need a forest, it only needed a screen. And now that it's here, it doesn't plan on leaving. Even now, people still post about him. They find strange shapes in old photographs. They wake from dreams of the faceless man standing over their bed. They feel watched when walking alone, even on city streets. And sometimes they see movement in the trees where there is no wind. They wonder, what if he's real? What if the stories weren't fiction, but instructions? What if we created him just enough to make it true? Because in the end, the line between belief and reality can be razor thin. And fear, real fear, makes that line disappear. So if you ever find yourself alone in the woods or standing at your window late at night and you feel something watching, don't look too long. Don't speak his name aloud. Don't try to disprove him, because Slender Man doesn't need proof. He doesn't need your permission. He only needs your attention. And once you've given him that, even just once, he's already there. Not walking, not chasing, just waiting. This has been another tale from Silent Stories, where forgotten legends and whispered fears come back to life. Some say stories are just stories, but we know better, because the scariest ones don't end. They wait. If you enjoy the strange, the dark, and the chilling, subscribe now and join us as we uncover the hidden and the haunted. Like the video, share it with someone who dares to watch, and remember, there are always more silent stories waiting to be told.